Hey there, I'm at issue 34 and I'm so excited to learn about another one of the interesting cases that's being presented this afternoon. Hey there.
Hi, I'm Allison. I'm with Bode Technology, and I worked on the case with...
I'm Ryan Berry, and I prosecuted a case of Daniel Ray Skaggs in June of this year.
Awesome. So before we dive into that, I gotta ask, is this your first time at ISHE?
No, I was here last year, so this is second time for me.
Second time?
It's my first time at ISHE, and embarrassingly enough, I never even heard of ISHE until this case.
Wow, okay. So what brings you here? What brought you to ISHE?
So working at Bode, of course, they're always at ISHE. We're well aware of it. And when this case, it has such a unique story, we wanted to present it here, and we approached Ryan, and of course he was a big part of solving this case and then prosecuting the case, so we asked him if we could do it together, and that's how we ended up here.
Awesome. Ryan, I got to pick on you for a second. You know, what are you enjoying about ISHE so far? Your first time here?
Yeah, man, I've really enjoyed it. You know, it's just a great group of people. Like, everybody is so friendly. You know, the scientific community is totally different from the legal community that I've been involved in. You know, we tend to be very adversarial at times, and everybody here is just part of a common group searching for the truth, and that's what I want to be a part of, is people searching for the truth.
Yeah, I love that. It's a great space for networking, for collaborating, for learning from each other. So I'm glad to hear you're having a great time so far. So you're on the legal side and you're on the forensic side.
On the genealogy side.
The genealogy
yes.
side, okay. How long have you been in this industry and what brought you to?
Oh, I've been in genealogy generally for over 30 years. As far as the forensic investigative genetic genealogy, probably about 2.5 to 3 years, kind of when it was ramping up, I started to get involved in it. I've been with Bode for about 2.5 years now. So yeah, it's a fun field.
Yeah, I've heard so much this week about how genetic genealogy is just this exploding technique and this really new tool that's being used in a lot of cases, like the one that you're here to talk about. Can you tell me a little bit about, this case? The title of your talk, I believe, is The Twisted Tale of the Endogamous Rapist.
Yes, I will let you speak.
Okay, so you take it out a little bit. In 1990, a lady was raped forcibly by knife point, and they had no real suspects. And so they had one suspect that they did a secretor test on the blood. It was inconclusive, basically. And so it sat until 2004, 14 years later. And so finally, they decided they wanted to rule the suspect in once for all. And so they took it and took the blood that was in evidence and sent it to our Mississippi Forensic Laboratory, who sent it to Rely Gene, and they tested the blood versus the rape kit. And they were able to rule him out, the person that said he did it. But now we have a DNA profile. And so it sits again until 2017. So it sits, and then in 2017, we get a CODIS match, a case-to-case match. And what we learned about that case is it happened just 3 hours up the road in Memphis, Tennessee. And the facts were eerily similar. And basically the same thing: a woman got off work, a man put a knife to her neck, and she was forcibly raped. Her case was a lot different. Unfortunately, her kit wasn't tested until 2016. It wasn't processed until 2017. And so that's when we get the case-to-case match. I started with the DA's office I'm in. I've been in prosecution since 2007, but I started with the office I'm in 2019. Not as extensive as Allison, but I've been involved in genealogy, kind of amateur myself, since basically college. Just something I've enjoyed. And so when I read the books about the Golden State Killer, I just really enjoyed learning about that. And so I heard one of the district attorneys speak about this topic, and I left there thinking, why can't we do that in our case? And so we reached out to our crime lab. They put us up with Bode, and I think really the reason they were familiar with Bode was because of ISHE, because Deidre Hughes with our crime lab was familiar with Teresa Vreeland at Bode, and so it just kind of exemplifies the power of the networking opportunities that you have here at ISHE.
That's awesome. I love to hear about how these connections are having, real world impact on cases. A few things that I was thinking about while you were talking there. One was, you mentioned the time to get the kit processed and tested. We hear a lot about backlogs. Can you talk about how you're seeing that showing up in your work?
Yeah, so the only reason this case got tested in Memphis, is what I understand, in Shelby County, they had a backlog reduction grant. And so the victim, unfortunately, I think I may have mentioned this, she was told her kid was lost, and she thought it was just gone, but it wasn't. And so, but nobody ever told her until we had this come up. I was working in another part of the state when I heard about all these cold cases, thousands of cold cases they're working. And I thought, man, that's good. They're finally doing something. And in our case, in Brandon, but for Deidre putting the information in CODIS, I'm not sure that we would have ever been sitting here today.
Cool. Yeah. So the power of, getting through those backlogs and databases like CODIS, making these connections. Yeah. So we get this profile, and you say, you learn about genetic genealogy, referencing the books. Where does it go from there once Bode gets involved?
So Bode got involved, and I was the person who was assigned the case. We, of course, have multiple people working at Bode who do cases. And I got excited at first. I thought, this is going to be easy. Oh, where was that wrong? It ended up being, when we uploaded to Family Tree DNA and GEDmatch, and we looked at the first matrix, the way the matches are related to each other, everybody was related to everybody. And I looked at it, and of course, that's endogamy and some pedigree collapse, and that's something that genealogists don't like to see. It just makes solving and figuring out who the sample is very challenging. So we tried to narrow it down. We did have one significant match. It was a little under 300 centimorgans. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get lost in the endogamy right now. Let's work this match. And it just felt like this whole case, every step we took, if we broke through a little bit of a brick wall, there was another one that was even bigger and even higher. And working with that match, initially her father was unknown to us. So it took some investigative, and Ryan did some interviewing and things like that. We were able to figure out who her father was. And then we were able to eliminate lines. We knew this match, it was not on her mother's side. And we knew it was not on her father's side, on the paternal grandfather. So we knew we were working on the paternal grandmother side. And that paternal grandmother, let me tell you, she just lived a twisted life of lies and secrets and everything else. It was really something to be able to work through. And it was the partnership. When I hit walls where I couldn't access things that are publicly available to genealogists, I reach out to Ryan, and his law enforcement connections were able to help and things along the line. And so we had to solve multiple levels of unknown parentage, deal with this endogamy, and eventually it all came together, and we ended up with 3 potential suspects. So we had full triangulations, meaning that matches on the mother's side, matches on the father's side. And I said to Ryan, I called him, and I'm like, I got you 3 names. It's one of 3 brothers. It's going to be one of them. And then he took it from there.
Yeah. Wow. I want to back up a little bit, because there's so much complexity to what you're describing here.
Yes.
There's you mentioned, the lies and secrecy and things, which complicates things from a human side.
Yes.
But the DNA side also has to be so messy. Just for, anyone watching online on YouTube or wherever, can you talk to me about this word endogamy and the implications of that for the DNA work?
So endogamy is when you have a population that has possibly intermarried or intermixed for many different generations. And what ends up happening is people who, we may have like a centimorgan amount that they share in DNA. And you might say, okay, well, this looks like they might be maybe second or third cousins based on that amount. But it ends up being they're really 4th or 5th cousins in multiple ways, because they're related multiple ways over. And it just makes it hard, because what we do in genetic genealogy, we're looking for triangulations. Is our sample matching on the mother's side or on the father's side? And we narrow down to look forward a most recent common ancestor. But with endogamy, you have many most recent common ancestors. And it becomes very hard to know which way to go on that family tree to come back to identifying the sample.
It just kind of sends a wrecking ball through your normal methods and your normal
That's a good
math.
word. Wrecking balls, I love that word. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So eventually you work your way through that, and you arrive at 3 suspects.
Yes.
And what happens from there?
It was 3 brothers, and that's when I called Ryan. I gave him the names, and I'm like, I got 3 brothers. You're going to have to figure out which one. And
yeah, so I was in court. It was January 31st. I was in court, and I get a call or text from you, and I step out of court, and I still have the sheet of paper, and she's talking real fast about these 3 brothers, and so we don't have access to criminal histories. So I reached out to the FBI, and they ran a criminal history on these 3 brothers, and one of these brothers was a serial rapist dating back to the 70s. And so what we learned about him is in 1977, he would break into women's houses early in the morning and catch them when they woke up He would grab a knife from their kitchen. He would take them back to the bedroom they just came out of, the safety of their bedroom, and he'd forcibly rape them. He did about 4 or 5 times. He was convicted and did till about 1986. He served time in Texas. He was paroled to the state of Arkansas. But also in the criminal history, we learned in Noonan, Georgia, just a year after ours, because both of Memphis and Brandon both took place in August of 1990. But in 1991, a little less than a year later, he's caught in Noonan, Georgia. And in Noonan, Georgia, we actually called and talked to the investigator. And when we said Daniel Ray Skaggs' name, he said, whatever he did, what you think he did it. And what we learned is this deputy that we talked to was out patrolling one night, and he sees a distraught woman coming down in a passenger seat of a car, driving down the road, and a man driving, and it just didn't look right to him. And so he flips on his blue lights, he does an investigatory stop. And when he stops the car, the guy runs a little bit and tries to get away from him, but stops him. And as soon as he gets the car out of the car, this lady, he finds out it's from Germany, and she gets out and she's yelling, knife, 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 in broken English, right? And so he gets her and takes her into his custody. They get Daniel Ray Skaggs stopped. Well, before trial could commence, she goes back to Germany, and so they aren't able to convict him on that. They try him on the assault, but he gets acquitted on that because they can't talk about any of the kidnapping. And so he goes free. But one of the things we learned is that he is a driver for a bakery company in Hope, Arkansas, with a nationwide trucking route. And so based on the facts of the similar knife point, especially in the Noonan, Georgia incident, we felt like we had our guy. Yeah.
And were you able to then confirm that?
Yeah. So once we did that, so that was January 31st. And so we know he's in Oklahoma. We see his picture of his ID, and he's got an oxygen mask. And we're like, man, this guy, we learned he's 66 years old, but he looks like he's about 86, right? And so we say, we've got to hurry. We've got to get this thing going. And so I contact the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigations, and my boss had a contact up there, and he put me in touch with an agent named Josh Dean, and Josh was just a miracle worker. I talked to him on Friday, the 10th of February, and on Valentine's Day night, this married man goes out in the middle of the night to rural Oklahoma, and he gets the trash from Daniel Ray Skaggs, that was abandoned. He does a surreptitious trash pull, and he gets an oxygen mask, which is a CPAP mask, and he gets a pill bottle with Daniel Skaggs' name on it and some pop bottles, and he overnights those to Bode. And Carly Mills at Bode was able to confirm that he was indeed our rapist.
Wow. That is quite the story.
Yeah.
It's striking to me how much the DNA side was, working with the more human side of the investigatory side, and how it took both sides of that to reach a conclusion in this case. That collaboration is amazing.
Absolutely. It wouldn't have happened without it.
Yeah. We needed both of us, each doing our own role in our own way and working together. It was a really good partnership together, and Ryan was extremely responsive to anything I needed, and that motivated me even more because I had a partner who was really actively working and trying to get answers, and then it led to determining who it was. And Ryan actually got to try the case too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think to say we were both obsessed with this case is an understatement.
Yeah.
I think there probably did a day go by that from the time we got the investigative lead of the relatives that we weren't both looking at this, trying to figure out who it was.
Wow. So you took it to trial and
did
reach a conviction?
I did. So we arrested him on March 14th, basically a month after we got it. And so we took it to trial, and in June 19th of this year, we had a 3-day trial with 13 witnesses. We called Teresa Vreeland from Bode to testify as an expert witness. Carly Mills testified from Bode as an expert witness. 2 of our Mississippi Forensic Laboratory analysts, Joseph Heflin and Deidre Hughes, her names keep popping up, all testified as witnesses. After the 3rd day, we rested, and he was convicted of rape and kidnapping. He's a violent habitual offender under our 3 strikes law, and so the judge gave him 2 life sentences consecutively. And it's important to me because we had both of our victims, although the Memphis victim was not our case, we felt like she's our victim, right? And so he got a life sentence in my eyes for each one of those ladies that he raped that we knew about. And so kind of the conclusion of the deal, I listened to a lot of the jail calls, and he bragged about what great care he was given in our custody and how they were taking care of him. Once he was transferred to Mississippi Department of Corrections, he lived approximately 40 days. He passed away on August 1st of this year.
Wow. So how long was it between, the first offense, the first samples that were processed and everything? How long between that and conviction?
Well, if you look at the first samples that they got, it was in 1977, but none of those were uploaded to CODIS or anything like that. A DNA profile wasn't developed. They were actually talking about going and opening some of his other cold cases, but once he died, they decided, I believe, not to do that. But the first one in our case that we developed, and it was sent for DNA testing in 04, they got 2 different DNA tests in 05 and 06. So his DNA was tested twice. And Hua Nasir, that was with Religene back in the day, she tested and developed a profile. And so the profile was finally uploaded to CODIS in 2006. So from 2006 to 2023.
Wow. So this story, it pulls in so many topics that we're discussing here at ISHE. Obviously, the investigative genetic genealogy is a huge piece of it, but also talking about sample processing and backlog reduction, and the collaboration between law enforcement and the testing labs are all, important pieces of this story.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes a team. This is not anything that's done by a person. It is a team from all different fields working together in order to get resolution on cases like this.
Wow. Incredible. The last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up here, and I am looking forward to your talk this afternoon to, get to see your slides and get, a more complete picture, but I want to ask you, are there things from this case that you've learned that you're carrying forward to inform your work in other cases, both from the, forensic DNA side and, the legal side?
For me, with genetic genealogy, every single case I work, I feel like I'm always learning something. There's always something new and a new way of seeing things and a new way of processing things, whether it's just on the genealogy alone or whether it involves the DNA processing with that. So it's a constant growth in this field. The more cases you work, the stronger and better you are and the quicker you become with your other cases. So absolutely for me. Yeah.
I think as a prosecutor, we got to remember that we're not an island and that we have to work together with everybody to get what we need to do. And, this case, I actually wasn't even working sexual assaults when this happened. And so for prosecutors, I would say listen to your investigators, listen to your forensic people. If they've got something that they're interested in working, try to work with them to see if we can get a resolution. Because it's important. These 2 ladies, they're in their early 60s now, and this has absolutely changed their lives to get a conviction in this case.
Wow. Amazing. And what a great message, at ISHE, a place that thrives on that collaboration and that networking. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing this story. Thanks for your time and for chatting with me.
Thank you.
It's a blast to talk to you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Awesome. Thank you so much.